when it comes to strategy, and I remember because I was in touch with Faz, my claim to fame in this whole thing is that I was the person who facilitated Bernie getting on Joe Rogan, which on the one hand, I pat myself on the back over it, but on the other hand, it's like I'm probably public enemy #1 over that because it opened up a whole can of worms.
Can I tell you something about that I actually haven't talked about publicly? So it's just the power of Joe Rogan is incredible to me. And here's what's incredible about it. And it's something that I think I think it has been a real strategic misstep to isolate the left from him.
Yes.
Totally agree. You're singing our tune.
Right. Yeah. But here's the amount of power he has. This is like, because there's this like perception that Joe Rogan's audience is a bunch of like
meathead
right-wingers.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're all that.
So here's what happened. We go on Joe Rogan, and like it goes up. I think a day later. It was a brief window, and we had flown to Miami to do I want to say it was the NABJ conference, the National Association of Black Journalists conference, that all the presidential candidates were asked to speak at. And we flew into Miami the night before, and we're only doing like NAB. We were like doing this one thing and flying out, which always made Bernie not happy to do events like that. But we kind of had a night a little bit down, and he was like, let's go get Cuban food. Mm-hmm. And he was like, basically, he's like, find like a strip mall Cuban, like mom and pop Cuban restaurant. Let's go get some like real good Cuban food. Like not fancy, but like so we found this like strip mall Cuban restaurant in Miami that had like really good reviews in a bunch of places. We went, and it's like mom and pop, the kind of family's running it, and we're eating, and the mother, who is at least 50 years old, a Cuban woman from Cuba, not the core Bernie voter, somebody who you would say walked up and said, I heard you on Joe Rogan today, and basically before I didn't like you, but now that I've listened to you, I get it now. Mm. And she was like, and she had a whole conversation, and this was like this was somebody who absolutely outside the stereotype. And by the way, like one day, it wasn't like I heard about the Joe Rogan thing after all the stupid controversy online. It was literally like she was clearly downloading the Joe Rogan podcast every day and listening to it. And and by the way, for weeks on end, every day somebody would come up and talk to Bernie. And look, Bernie's done every TV show in the world, and I was with him for most of it. There was no other TV show where anybody ever said anything like that.
Okay, so thank you, because I was very proud to have facilitated that. And whenever anybody doubted him doing that, I would say, #1, go look at the view count. Right now it's at 14.5 million views. #2, read the comments, because the comments are here. I'll just give you guys a couple. I'm a conservative, but this was a great listen and a real mind opener. Bernie proved me wrong. He is actually for the people. We need him to be president. Bernie is so ridiculously well-versed. I'm amazed how coherent he is, even at his age. And that one's kind of funny. Anyway, it goes on. Mad respect for Bernie. I don't agree with everything he does, but I have a huge admiration and respect for his grit and service. And the whole point of politics is to get people who might not normally agree with you to then agree with you. And when Joe endorsed Bernie, people were mad that like the Bernie campaign cut a clip of it and sent it out there when he's the #1 podcaster in the world.
Can I tell you the other funny part of that? Like, reporters got obsessed. They're like, what was the strategic conversation with Bernie like about before you put that up? I was like, you think there was a strategic conversation about a tweet? Like, do you think, like, really?
Well, and not to mention, it's a no-brainer.
It's the #1 podcaster in the world.
He is one of the most influential public figures.
They were like, well, is that wrong? And I was like, no, that team had like their mandate was when they saw somebody famous and important endorse Bernie and there was video, clip it
and put it out.
And the most important point is that Joe Rogan endorsed Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders didn't endorse Joe Rogan. Bernie Sanders didn't go out there and say, there was a transphobic joke in 1996 that I really loved when I heard it from Joe Rogan.
Right.
He didn't say that.
And by the way, Bernie has been kind of somebody who's been at the forefront of trans rights, and he wouldn't sacrifice. Like, he's not going to go and
of course.
Like, go to him, go to those venues, go on Fox News. Right, which was the other. And after the campaign, a reporter in one of the post-mortems was like interviewing me and was like, I was getting yelled at because I was like one of the last people they interviewed. So I was getting all the they're like, well, your campaign didn't reach out outside your media bubble. I was like, we were the only campaign that reached out outside the media bubble. Like,
and got slammed for it.
And I was like, look, they're like, well, what if you had gone on, like, we got a critique that you didn't go to, like, a monastery with nuns. That was literally what this reporter said at one point. And I'm like, this is a major political reporter. Like, you would know the name. And they were like, you didn't go to, like, this person critiqued you for not going to, like, a monastery with nuns. And I was like, okay, I don't know what the political benefit of that would be, but can we just take a step back from this? I was like, you keep saying we could do these things without cost. What do you think would have happened if we went to a monastery with nuns? Do you not think, like, half the people who don't like Bernie from the Hillary thing, who do some pro-choice politics, would be all up in Bernie if he went to a monastery?
Right? How can you? This
right?
How can you?
So true.
I was like, I'm sure Bernie would have actually, if we'd been invited to a monastery, Bernie probably would have wanted to go.
He went to Liberty University,
right? He
told them, like, look, we're not going to agree on a lot, but let's talk about economics and income inequality.
That's the thing. He was always like. And there's the one interview that I really wanted Bernie to do that they turned us down. That I to this day, I pushed it until I could push no more with them. Was rejected was kind of pushed off, and kept coming with Stern.
It was Howard Stern.
Tried.
That would have been great.
That would have been great.
From the summer forward. In the summer they were like, oh, we don't want to be political. It's too far away from the election.
Don't want to be political. Okay.
You're running for president.
Like bullshit.
No, this is the Stern. Like they were
Stern
like.
people.
Then they were like, we don't want to be political. He's running for. We don't want to have every political guest. And I was like, you don't have to. Like Rogan shows, you don't have to have every.
Yeah, I mean, Bernie's in a category of his own.
Stern's like a Hillary kind of guy. I mean, that's his politics.
Let me point out, he has said in the past, the only person who defended him. And because Bernie's been on the Stern show before.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know that.
When Bernie was a member of the House, he went on Stern because he wrote a letter to the FCC castigating them for going at Howard Stern. And
Bernie. I love this. I didn't even know that.
Always
Stern had talked, like, praised Bernie in 2000 and had talked in interviews that, like, remembered it and said, yeah, Bernie was, like, the only member of Congress to be like, screw you, FCC. Like,
that's a real free speech guy. That's an actual free speech guy right there. Not this nonsense posturing today.
Very true.
Go ahead, baby.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about, let's talk a little bit about, something that Kyle and I both debated. I know you said that you didn't think that there was anything that could have been done towards the end of the campaign to change the dynamics.
But this is with the Biden thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So